Good morning, everyone. Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Anonka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have a 2 FMA chirp report for you. The title of this chirp report is Best of the Bunch, and was submitted to Erowid in 2021 by the user Anatoly Smorin. With all that being said, let our story begin. 2 FMA, Best of the Bunch. This report is part of an 8-report collection. The collection consists of a summary report that is retrospective and generalized in nature, as well as 7, of which this is one, more detailed chronicles of my experiences with various chemicals used intentionally for work or study enhancement. Each report documents a single substance used for 30 days. The idea was to give each material a chance to show its strengths and weaknesses. The summary report has shorter descriptions and comparisons of my experiences with each material, as well as links to the other full-length experience reports for each substance. The 2 FMA was a fluffy and clumpy white powder, of which the dosages were prepared on a freshly calibrated milligram, 0.000 gram scale. The chemicals were sourced through a highly vetted chemist, and these batches were tested at a 98% purity. An NMR analysis was completed and analyzed by a third-party chemist to verify the chemical was as advertised. When I prepared dosages for oral administration, I used 00 capsules. I didn't have any tolerance to 2 FMA coming into the beginning of my month of using the substance. Personal background. I consider myself to be well versed in the realm of substance use. Previous experiences include opiates, stimulants, and psychedelics, spanning over more than a decade. A fair amount of my substance usage history includes novel research chemicals, often in less than common combinations. This report was written using extensive notes, as well as audio recordings taken during the experiences. In addition to these, I penned thoughts, feelings, and descriptions of the effects in my trusty notebook. I'm going to try my hardest to make this not sound like a massive endorsement of 2 FMA. It will be hard, because this stuff, to me, is the absolute baddest mamma jamma out there when it comes to study aids. It is worth noting that of all the substances explored in this experience report collection, this is the drug I had the most familiarity with. So others came close, but in recent years especially, 2 FMA is something I choose more often than the other substances I'm discussing in this performance enhancement series. Study dosage timeline. My ingestion schedule was as follows. Day 1, 15 milligrams insufflated. Day 2, 15 milligrams insufflated. Day 3, 13 milligrams oral. Day 4, off day. Day 5, 31 milligrams oral. Day 6, 10 milligrams oral. Day 7, 27 milligrams oral. Day 8, off day. Day 9, 22 milligrams oral. Day 10, 22 milligrams oral. Day 11, 28 milligrams oral. Day 12, off day. Day 13, off day. Day 14, 16 milligrams oral. Day 15, off day. Day 16, 27 milligrams oral. Day 17, 24 milligrams oral. Day 18, off day. Day 19, 33 milligrams oral. Day 20, 14 milligrams oral. Day 21, 27 milligrams oral. Day 22, off day. Day 23, 20 milligrams oral. Day 24, off day. Day 25, 25 milligrams oral. And at 8.5 hours in, another 26 milligrams oral. Day 26, 15 milligrams oral. Day 27, 24 milligrams oral. Day 28, off day. Day 29, 25 milligrams oral. Day 30, 26 milligrams oral. Timeline and duration details. While the onset, duration, and intensity varied depending on dosage, what I had eaten that day, my mood, and a myriad of other factors, I constructed the summary below to describe when I felt certain types of effects on an average day. T plus 0. I swallow a capsule or insufflate a line of finely crushed powder. The backdrip and sting of snorting the compound are very manageable. I don't think I'd even label them as unpleasant. 15 minutes to 40 minutes in. By now, I am feeling the 2 FMA affect my mind and body. First alert is probably closer to 10 to 20 minutes for me when insufflating, and perhaps 25 to 40 minutes when taking it orally. A smile, followed by a readjustment in my chair to straighten my spine in preparation of the mental boost soon to come, is usually my way of telling I'm progressing. 45 minutes in. Regardless of my route of administration, I'm usually nearing peak intensity during this time range. 1 hour to 2.5 hours in. This is smooth sailing. The positivity and mood lift carrying me through this section of the experience is probably indicative of minor euphoria being released by the substance. If I am sitting at my desk, I am laser focused. Not to the point of forgetting to drink water or getting lost in a rabbit hole, but I work with far fewer breaks, such as checking my phone more than normal. While in this enhanced state, I still feel calm. More calm than I do sober at work. I don't feel cranked up. I'm just accelerated. I'm in the Rolls-Royce of stimulation, riding smooth and going fast. 2 hours to 5 hours in. Depending on the dosage, I begin to notice a plateau in effect intensity, and for most dosages, I'll begin coming down in the latter third of this time range. The come down is fairly long, which I generally enjoy, gently tapering back to baseline in time for dinner and a sober evening if desired. 5 hours to 9 hours in. This is the descent back to baseline, a lingering effect I almost always experience in a cross-tolerance with alcohol. I can drink more than normal, but feel the alcohol's effects significantly less. My appetite, although never severely suppressed, always returned full force by the end. I don't have much to include for this period of time, given that it was bland, smooth, and a comfortable transition back to baseline. Expectations, hopes, and concerns going in. Given my prior experience with 2-FMA, I was looking forward to this month more than any of the other substances. My expectations were that this would be the best performing study aid substance, while having the fewest negative side effects and drawbacks, such as tolerance or dependency. I hoped the substance would retain its magic. This was the most regularly I've used 2-FMA in terms of frequency. No concerns to speak of. I came into the 2-FMA month ready to go. My favorite aspects. Well, I liked it. All of it. Soft stimulation that kept me on task, and happy to be working no matter what I was tasked with. This chemical is like a key for me that unlocks otherwise unobtainable levels of focus and productivity. 2-FMA provided me with a good mood, positivity, and mellow euphoria depending on dosage. This substance made me feel smart and happy. In addition to being wonderful while in action, I never felt compelled to compulsively redose, increase my dosages, or depart from my dosing schedule. When I say the substance made me smart and happy, I should offer clarification. Smart meant increased focus. Focus that didn't stray from the desired task. The combination ultimately increasing productivity and results. And happy meant that I enjoyed the productivity that resulted from the increased mental abilities. A general lift in mood, accompanied by light physical and mental euphoria. The two went hand in hand. Getting more done resulted in happiness, which boosted my interest and productivity. A great cycle to be in. The fact that I could eat and have appetite and no detrimental effects on taste was very useful, especially when considering that ingestion was scheduled nearly every day. I didn't run across any stomach discomfort or agitation, which for me, with a chronic digestive disease, was a huge bonus. In general, the substance didn't feel terribly caustic to my body, even after such regular usage. I have found this to be true in the past as well, including pretty large repeated dosages, when 2-FMA was part of a multi-day stimulant binge. Least favorite aspects. This section is going to be short. I didn't encounter stomach discomfort as I do on many stimulants. Even on higher dosages, I didn't get jittery or uncomfortable, and never regretted taking this substance. For a worrywart like me, this last point of total comfort, at low and high dosages alike, is remarkable. There were many days when I had some issues regulating my body temperature. My circulation seemed comprised slightly, often resulting in chilly feet and fingers. Adding warm socks or additional clothing layers helped some, but at times I couldn't shake an uncomfortable chill until I hopped into a hot shower. That was really the only negative. Neutral aspects and additional commentary. Once again, not much to write here. Interference with my sleep schedule and appetite suppression spoiling meals. Two things I never had to worry about with 2-FMA. This substance really didn't leave me with much to complain about. Appetite. In the dosage ranges I explored during this month with 2-FMA, I was always able to find the sweet spot in regards to leveraging the substance's slight appetite suppression to suit the schedule of the day's needs. If I was slammed with meetings for the first half of the day, I'd eat a banana prior to my 2-FMA dosage and find that I didn't get hit with any hunger pangs or cravings until early afternoon. I might take a slightly higher dosage, perhaps 24 milligrams in the place of 18. I found the higher the dosage, the more intense and longer lasting the suppression on my hunger was. As one might expect, at lower dosages, the effects on my appetite were drastically less noticeable. If my afternoon was busy, I'd simply dose low in the morning, eat a tasty meal, and larger redose before the craziness began. Generally at smaller dosages, the 2-FMA had no effect on my desire to eat. The taste of food, and if anything, increased my enjoyment of the self-nourishing process. Consistency in the effects I could expect, at specific dosages, made this substance easy to customize to my exact needs, and felt totally comfortable throughout the days. Biometrics. Starting weight, 205 pounds. Ending weight, 192 pounds. This month included increased exercise, which occurred without any heart rate issues or spiking, and a better diet including less alcohol. The stimulant potentially helped minimize some midday snacking, but overall, I didn't see the 2-FMA playing a role in the weight loss. Heart rate notes? Nothing noteworthy. No slowing or hastening either, on a regular basis or single incident. Sexual effects. Desires slightly increased, particularly between +1 hour and +4 hours. After the comedown, this diminished. In terms of performance, I didn't find extreme enhancement or setbacks. Stamina was increased to a minor degree on most of the occasions the situation turned sexual. Sleep effects. I didn't note any extra difficulty falling asleep on days I took the 2-FMA. I was dosing relatively early and tend to be a bit of a night owl, so it seems logical I never found the substance disruptive to my sleep schedule. I would imagine dosing with 4 to 6 hours of a desired bedtime would have caused me issues. Mental effects. Creativity. Strictly speaking, I didn't feel especially creative or artistic while using 2-FMA. I found some unorthodox solutions to various challenges, but I attribute this to sustained effort rather than my brain operating in a vastly different way, as it might on psychedelics. Focus. 2-FMA really shined here. I was able to work longer and at a higher rate of productivity than I could have sober. Period. This substance allowed me to be close to maximum effort for much longer periods of time than I normally can. This is true of most amphetamines for me, but what really stood out to me with this substance in particular was that the focus was easily controlled. I rarely found myself realizing I'd spent an hour down a rabbit hole or on some side project, losing track of my main objective or goal. This increased focus felt very natural. Even at higher dosages, I didn't feel cracked out or overstimulated to the point of becoming uncomfortable with the speed of my thoughts. Social effects. No doubt about it. This substance makes me more likely to shoot off a text message to a friend or family member. In the grand scheme of stimulants, I would say 2-FMA was in the lower half in terms of making me a chatty Cathy. I found my interactions with others slightly more positive than normal, always trying to find silver linings and put an optimistic spin on things. This was enjoyable, but not intense to the point where I felt I was at risk of saying something I would later regret. I was taking the 2-FMA in non-recreational amounts during this month, so the intensity of the social effects was well within my expectations. Mood effects. I chose to divide this section into portions of time because after reviewing the notes at the end of the month, the most distinct pattern of mood changes were correlated to specific timelines. The comments below held true for nearly all of the 2 FMA dosage days. Mid-experience. As I have alluded to already in this report, 2 FMA generally lifted my spirits and kept a smile on my face. While this was the initially obvious characteristic, I did gain some holistic insight as to how the substance affected my mood from taking it regularly over the course of a month. I had a variety of natural moods throughout the month and encountered several seriously frustrating and overwhelming days at work. In these instances, the 2 FMA was not a strong enough agent, at the given dosages, to lift me out of a funk or the sky is falling attitude. Generally, the substance resulted in a better mood, but not always. I didn't have 30 days in a row of good moods. When the down days happened, the 2 FMA let them happen. On 2 occasions, I felt as though the extra stimulation from the substance drove me down a worse path than if I had been sober in the bad mood. But this wasn't the norm. Comedown. The 2 FMA return to baseline is a gentle one. I never felt my mood crash or drastically change as the substance's effects wore off. On days where I dosed a bit higher, or had taken the substance a number of days in a row, I did detect a slight increase in irritability towards the end of the day. I'd feel a bit drained, tapped out, and cranky if something didn't go as planned. Next day. There was never any sort of hangover or afterglow on the days following 2 FMA usage. Even if I'd taken the substance all week, or on a long continuous stretch of days, I didn't feel any sort of withdrawal. There was never any desire to dose again, to scratch an itch. Physical effects. 2 FMA had very gentle manners when affecting my mind or body. It seemed almost apologetic when it forced a less than desirable effect on me. My circulation did seem to suffer when on the substance. This caused cold feet and hands that were tricky to regulate and make comfortable, often resulting in me cycling through multiple pairs of wool socks each day. Compared to the beneficial effects on my productivity, this was a small price to pay. My stomach, easily offended due to a lifelong stomach condition, does not seem to be affected by this particular stimulant. I never experienced any cramps, discomforts, or flare-ups from my disease. I often use the bathroom about 15 to 30 minutes after ingesting the 2 FMA, but this is pretty normal for me when taking any similar substance, even coffee. The only other common theme in my notes was that when the drug wore off, or was wearing off, I often felt drained, like my day was automatically over because the 2 FMA was leaving me. Most days, this worked perfect. I didn't mind a bit of extra drag after a massively productive day. This seemed natural and to be expected, honestly. When I was forced to continue work past the comedown, however, I often switched substances to alcohol or redosed the 2 FMA. This wasn't necessarily a negative. I actually found this to be useful. A red flag that didn't allow me to try and give 110% for days on end. Combinations. Please keep in mind the below commentary is limited to the handful of interactions between my 2 FMA dosages, taken primarily in the morning, and secondary substances which were mostly taken in the afternoons or evenings. In many cases, I would hesitate to say that these were combinations, and more likely to categorize them as two separate experiences with slight overlap in their timelines. Some of the substances described below are called out as being more legitimate combinations due to proximity of ingestion. Cannabis. I combined cannabis and 2-FMA fairly regularly, both during the workday as well as abstaining from cannabis until after work. This included both low-dosage edibles and vaporizing oil products. At lower dosages, 2 or 3 medium-sized hits from my vape pen, the traditional cannabis effect were hard to detect. In this type of combination, I found a small boost, perhaps 5 to 10% in the 2-FMA's effects. This was handy when I had dosed the stimulant a bit lower and needed a little pick-me-up. All the edibles ingested were low-intensity, homemade cookies, so I don't have an exact dosage of the THC content. They acted in the background, giving a little goofiness to my mood, but overall, I didn't find that they helped my productivity. Perhaps the opposite, in fact, with a clouded mind. Larger cannabis dosages also magnified the 2-FMA's effects. A strong flush of euphoria almost always followed large successive hits of cannabis. This was a treat, but after the initial rush, I often lost some of the most critical performance-enhancing aspects of the 2-FMA. My focus might be retained, but it often became misdirected to ideas or tasks that had nothing to do with the work I was supposed to be doing. Overall, this wasn't a combination I enjoyed all that much. Alcohol. During the month of my 2-FMA usage, I was cutting back on my drinking, but still consumed alcohol on a third of my dosage days. The alcohol was typically introduced no earlier than T plus 2 hours after my capsular line of 2-FMA. A cold beer with lunch or an afternoon snack often felt extra refreshing. Unfortunately, taste was one of the only pleasant pieces to this combination, unless the dosage of alcohol was increased dramatically. Even at the tail end of the stimulant's duration, I noticed that I could consume far more alcohol than normal without feeling proportionate effects. Only with heavier consumption, 10 or more beers and a few cocktails, would I get the sedated, uncoordinated happiness that I would have expected at about half of the liquid diet. Benzodiazepines. I used several benzos during my month with 2-FMA. These were clonazepam, clonazepam, etavolam, and flualprazolam. I didn't find that any of these interacted with the 2-FMA differently than the others, so I've grouped them together rather than repeating myself for each individual substance. The benzo usage was more of a true combination than any other substance during this month. On several occasions, I took the benzo before or shortly following my stimulant dosage. Dosages were critical to achieving the effects I was in search of. 2-FMA on the higher side, and benzodiazepines on the lower side. Example, 38 milligrams of 2-FMA orally, combined with 1 to 1.5 milligrams of etavolam orally at the same time. This was like taking already smooth wood and giving it one final sanding using the finest grit sandpaper imaginable. Although this amphetamine doesn't have much of an edge and angstiness to it, the low-dosage benzos smoothed over whatever limited roughness existed. The stimulation became smoother than smooth, and I was able to settle into an even deeper groove than the 2-FMA provided on its own. With this type of pairing, I was cool, calm, collected, and operating at peak capacity. These were productive and dreamy, pleasant days of work. If the benzo dosages got too high, the balance of the experience would be off. I'd suddenly be in the mood to watch a movie, or shop online, or nap. Many things seemed attractive, except working. This isn't to say that higher dosages didn't play well with the 2-FMA. Timing is the key. Coming down from almost any psychoactive experience, I enjoy benzodiazepines to ease my transition to baseline, a meditative state, or sleep. This amphetamine was no exception. Once its effects were dwindling, I enjoyed the way the various benzos let me avoid the empty and drained sensation that 2-FMA sometimes left me with after a strenuous day, and instead enjoy basking in seductive relaxation. Given my reduction of alcohol consumption and polydrug addiction mindset, the benzos were useful in bridging the gap between substance-induced stimulation and the end of my evenings. Outcome, summary, and takeaways. I came in with towering expectations and hopes that 2-FMA would solidify itself as the best performance enhancement / study aid substance for me. The lofty bar was met and exceeded. One thing that was extremely enjoyable and surprising about the regular 2-FMA ingestion was that I didn't seem to go through any dependency or increased desire to dose the substance. In fact, the opposite was true. Multiple times my journal notes mentioned that after a day or more of redosing in a row, I didn't feel in the mood to take my morning dose. This got to the extent of me debating not sticking to the ingestion schedule. Most other stimulants do not have this effect for me, especially at such low dosages, and a few friends who are familiar with 2-FMA have not experienced this either. Your mileage may vary, I suppose. A self-regulating characteristic to a substance that I should want to do every day? Another check in the win column. In general, I found 10 milligrams to be about as small as I cared to dose. This would provide me with some appetite suppression, which was useful as I was trying to lose some weight at the time, and a minimal amount of increased focus and energy. 12 to 20 milligrams was probably my sweet spot for an average day, where I wanted to feel some legitimate stimulation, but not run any risk of feeling uncomfortable in any work scenario that might arise, such as a surprise meeting with higher-up employees. Beyond pure stimulation, the 2-FMA always felt smooth and positive, giving me mood and empathy levels a boost. It was like moving from hard light that one might find in an operating room at a hospital into a welcoming, warm, sun-soaked atrium. With this type of mental state, I was more productive, even without the exaggerated attention span and desire to perform. All right, everyone. That is the end of our story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Share with us your 2-FMA experiences down in the comments below. Check out the other videos and playlists on my channel, and I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.